Well, you guys ready for this? We're going to bring up some of the superstars of the industry, and you're going to get a chance to learn from them. So I'm going to start with a gentleman from San Francisco. He's one of the top real estate trainers in the country. He lists homes for, piddly little ones for $600,000 when he can find them that low, up to $2, $3, $4 million. So help me welcome one of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Rick Jiha. Give him a hand, everyone. Good to see you. Come on up. And then we're going to go ahead and ask to the stage a beautiful couple from El Dorado Hills. And they sell 50, 60, 70 homes a year up there at those low prices. We may have to pass the hat for them to, help them get a little extra cash. But they're rock stars. I love them. Help me welcome Mike and Renee Friedrich. Give them a hand, you guys. We'll put you right here. Put you in the middle where the good stuff is. Welcome. Good to see you guys. All right. And then finally, from Grass Valley, California, he's the king of the foothills, which is Nevada City, Grass Valley, Auburn. He, I think, personally does about 100 transactions a year, has a huge team. I love this man. Solid as the day is long. Help me welcome Mr. Alan Savage. Give him a hand, everyone. Straight up. All right. So this is our chance to hear from them. We're going to dive right into this and get going because then we got our keynote speaker. But are you ready? This can be real quick. How long have you been in real estate? First question.
30 years.
30 years?
Mm-hmm.
16.
16?
12.
12?
Yes.
It'll be 40 in May.
40 May. Give him a hand. That's good. So let's see, Renee, you're like the baby of the group. That's good. She likes that. Yes. All right. So, yes. The rose amongst three thorns. All right. So number two, how many years was it before you made the transition to being a successful, confident listing agent? Because I know for me it was many years, but just curious, we'll pass the mic. How many years was it till you felt like we'll start with, since you were last, go ahead, go first.
It was 9 years.
9 years?
Yeah, so I started selling in May of 1980, and 1989 I had a great year listing.
So you kind of figured it out.
Yeah, I still don't think I had completely figured it out. I got some help after that, but 88 was the first time I went and started listing outside of just my uncle, who was my broker. I started going to events and things, and that's when I started.
What's your uncle's first name?
Bill.
I like it, Uncle Bill.
Yeah, Uncle
That
Bill.
was my uncle's first name too, Uncle Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Renee, go ahead. How about you?
So I was really lucky that I got to follow Mike into the business. So he took a few years to drag me in. So I got in 2007, and we went to a couple of events that were really critical, I think, for us making that transition to more listings than buyers. And so really it was only about a year or so. Yeah, it was like 2008 that we really started focusing on the listings.
Is it true, Mike?
It's true.
No, go ahead.
That's it.
Give you a chance to come.
Man of a few words.
So when I got into real estate, it took me 2 weeks to figure out that buyers, are liars, and they typically, they would run from you. So I started focusing on listings right off. My first year, I listed 43 properties, and I sold all 43 properties my first year. But after that, it was I got coaching, and so I got coaching through the Mike Ferry organization for 8 years, and it made all the difference in the world, and it really took me to another level. So.
What was that new level you got?
183 transactions a year. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so if you're being an active listener here, become a listing agent in the next year or 2 weeks, right? I was 10 years, and Rick, you were 9 years. We're the slow learners in the bunch. But the other thing is I would get yourself to a Mike Ferry event. Would you agree Mike Ferry would help them? Oh, absolutely. There you go. So that's, go check it out. Just go. When is the next one? Google it and go. Okay, next question. what was the event or situation that led up to you kind of figuring it out? Whether it was listings or real estate, was there a certain event that was a catalyst where you just said, you just got mad and you go, enough is enough, I'm going to figure out this business? And ideally, when you decided to become a listing agent 9 years later, for you guys, 2 years later, I think, you don't count. I'm not even have you answer that question.
Say there's always one like him on every panel. So for me, one of the first seminars I ever went to was Tommy Hopkins, the guy with the removable hair, and there was 3,000 people in the room, and I sat there with my arms crossed. I had sold one house. Most of the people in the front 10 rows were selling 40, 50, 60 houses a year in the Bay Area. The seminar was in Oakland, I'll never forget it. And I said, oh, nobody does that crap. And I walked out of the seminar. And then I went to a Mike Ferry seminar in 1988, and I kind of did the same thing. I sat in the very back row. And Mike Ferry, as you know, can be abrasive, and he was sitting on stage, and he said, you guys from California, and he shook his head like this. The event was in Vegas. He goes, you do 50 deals, and you think you're a big deal. And then he goes, Puh! And I'm like, I'm in the very, very back, and I got up and said, I'm out of here. If I would have just sat my butt down and listened, things would have happened. But in 1990, I was so broke, the year after I sold 67 homes, that when I was married at that time, we borrowed money against a credit card to go to the NAR convention in New Orleans that year. I took 157 pages of notes. All the classes I went to were just on increasing your production and increasing your listing count. The last class I took was probably the most momentous, because the guy said, look, how many of you took a ton of notes? And everybody raised their hand. He goes, how many of you are flying home on a plane? And most of the room raised their hand. He said, look what I want you to do. I've been to a lot of these things, and you haven't been to as many as I have. You're going to want to go home and try to do everything in all your notes. He goes, on the way home on the plane, I want you to look over there and pick 2 at the least and 3 at the most ideas that you will incorporate this year. That's it. If you try to incorporate any more, you'll fail at all of them. And so I put 2 or 3 ideas together, and that's what skyrocketed my career from that point forward.
Beautiful. Excellent. Really good. Give me a hand. That was very good.
Thanks, Brent. So we have a Mike Ferry story also, but we stayed. He is super abrasive, but our intro to Mike was through Bill Pipes, actually, who then became a MAPS coach and is now a Tom Ferry coach. And Mike, this Mike, said, hey, clear your schedule. There's an event coming. It's in Rancho Cordova at blah, blah, blah. I think it was at an officers club at, or it wasn't Rancho. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it was here in Sacramento. And I had gone through 443 with Keller Williams, if any of you guys remember that, and I was like, I am way too busy to go to this 4-day class. You're crazy. And I tried to fight him, and I didn't win. And we were sitting there, and it was probably like half the day in, and I was like, we're signing up for coaching, and I don't know how we're going to do it, and I don't know how we're going to afford it, but I want that guy for my coach. And he said yes, because he's super smart. And we got into coaching right away with Mike Ferry, and that literally changed our lives. So
that's why you picked it up so quick in 2 years.
yeah.
Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to add there. It's the same story, right? So, but I mean, I was frustrated with buyers, quite frankly, and with the production that I had produced just by myself until Renee joined us. And then I looked at, well, the number one listing agent in the Natomas office was Mike Soros. And I asked him, dude, what are you doing? And he was a Mike Ferry guy. And he said, there's this event, whenever it was, and go there. And yeah, the rest really just told the story, so that's it. My most important thing I ever did was getting her in the business. That was the most important thing ever.
Big sale.
Yeah.
Good job.
I think the biggest realization I had was when I started tracking how much time I spent working buyers versus how long it took me to get a listing. And it was something like 2.5 times more time to get a buyer sale than it did to get a listing. But every time I took a listing, I closed an average of 1.7 sides within 90 days. So tracking your numbers, keeping track of your calls, how many calls it takes you to get a lead to convert to a listing, to understand that, and then understanding how long from the time you take the listing before it sells. knowing those numbers are really a big part of your business, and it's going to launch you. So I really recommend, keeping track of your numbers so you know what's real and where to spend your time.
Excellent. So one thing, again, if you're taking notes and watching, every single one of them have a coach. Anybody notice that? Every single one of them went to real estate events, right? And so that's the key, is to get yourself on an airplane, get you out of Dodge, go somewhere where you can really focus in and do your thing. So excellent, very good. Okay, next question. And we'll start here with you, Alan, and then you get to go next, and you could say, yeah, I agree. So number 4 is, what is your best source for obtaining listings? Is it, and I'm going to give you a few things, is it referrals, marketing, farming, open houses, door knocking, expireds? Is it Chamber of Commerce? Is it Little League being involved in your school? What was it for you that made the biggest relationships with builders? So think about it. And they have gotten these questions prior to tonight. So, but what is your number one source one or two best sources for listings?
So it has changed a little bit over the years because I've done a lot of volume for a lot of years, so it's very easy for me to reach out to past clients. So I would say, number one, once you've built a relationship, that's your gold right there. So, don't focus on the deal, focus on the relationship with your client. Do the job and tell them in advance, I'm working hard for the opportunity to come back and serve you again and again and to take care of your family and your friends, and I want to earn that right to call you for that business. So I'm really counting on that, and I really would appreciate you grading my service to you at the end of this, and let me know what I can do to improve my service to you in the future. And I will be calling you in the future to ask for that future business. So I would say that's my number one thing, but there are a couple little things that I could add. And that is that find something that you're passionate about and focus on that. Make sure there's enough buyers in that realm that you want to work. But like one of the very first things I did when I cold turkey moved from little town of Cambria, where I was closing 183 transactions, and moved to Grass Valley, is I got up on the phone and I started making calls. And I called expireds and FSBOs primarily in the beginning, and I listed like a madman, and it launched me. And so I would highly recommend that. And then the way that you market, don't spend a lot of money, because in the beginning of your career, you don't have a lot of money to spend, but utilize Craigslist as a really powerful tool, and it's where I generate a lot of my leads. So I highly recommend that you find those little niches that you can do for very little money and get you launched very quickly. There you go.
So now I get to go first. So for us, it's definitely now that we have gotten an established business, database, right? It's past clients. We started young, our clients were young, so now they all outgrown their homes. Now they need to sell their home, buy a new home. So that's nice. We have a lot of double-ended that way, buy, sell, buy. Prior to that, Renee and Mike Ferry, we learned the expired script in and out, right? And at some point, in 08, 09, up to about until short sales, we both called at the same time and expired. That's where it was. Renee still calls them. So database number one, and then expireds is our number two.
And we added a farm a couple years ago, so that's
Not going so well.
it's starting to pay off. So as Alan said, watch what you spend your money on and try not to overinvest. We might have overinvested. I don't know if that's working.
A lot of talk about farms these days. It's not marijuana. Tell them, what a farm is for real estate. It's not the typical house.
Yeah, we're not growing yet. So we have a geographic farm that is in our neighborhood, and so it's not where we live, but it's right close to where we work. I'm sorry, this feels like it's going. Oh, I don't care. We've been farming in our farm for 2.5 years with really good pieces. Don't farm our farm. You're not gonna we're finally breaking ground and getting someplace with it. So we farm Blackstone, which is in El Dorado Hills, and I know, I don't care. They're not going to go do it. They're going to find their own farm. But we were at a Tom Ferry event, and this is important, right? They're going to find their own farm.
I don't know. I don't live here.
It's taken 2.5 years for us to start getting listings in there, so it's a long game for sure, and we overspent at the beginning, and now we're partnering with one of our lenders, which is another thing that I want to say. Like, having great partners, like we've worked with Dennis for the last 12 years, we've worked with our lenders for a really, really long time, we've got just a handful that we work with, and lean on your partners to help you do more business. So one of our lenders helps us now with the farm, and but it's a geographic area where we decided the turnover's good, the price point's good, and so we started investing. And so right now we have 2 listings in the farm that are fairly recent, and we've done a decent amount. It's like it pencils, but not by a lot. And so this year's the year that's going to take off, I think. So you have a mic. He's got a mic.
Yeah. It's a long game, but once you get in there, it's gold. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, so my Uncle Bill used to say, "He who lists lasts." I want to piggyback off some of the things that Alan said. Over my career, everything that Brent said on that list, except new builders, I've used in moments of my 40-year career, and I've gotten tons of listings from all of those different things. One of the biggest tools I ever learned about in terms of getting it is, like, even when brand new agents come onto my team, or that I'm talking to agents in a group or coaching agents, I always say, look, the most important thing is that you understand that training doesn't work, it's the work that trains. And if you're not going out and losing listing appointments, you're never going to win a ton of listing appointments. Everything I got in a habit at a very young age, because I heard somebody say it at a seminar. Every time I won a listing, I'd call the client and I'd say, thank you so much for picking me. Listen, I've been in the real estate business X years now, and I'm always working to be better. Can you tell me why you picked me over those other agents? So then you got the information on what you need to be better, even better at, like strengthen that strength. Don't focus on your weakness. Well, when I didn't get the listing, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, it's Rick Jiha. I got your voicemail. I'm wishing you the best of luck. I know you didn't choose me. Listen, if I'm trying to learn all the time, if I had the opportunity to work with you again, what would I need to do differently so that I could earn the listing from you next time? And then let them tell you the truth. A lot of times they're afraid to, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And what I tell them is, I go, look, don't worry about my feelings, be brutally honest, because it's the only way I'm going to learn to be a better realtor. Those are some of the things that work. But I can tell you, when I was with Keller Williams for 14 years, I helped write a lot of the curriculum, like 443, and a lot of our farming stuff. So there's farming will give predictable results as long as you will go a minimum of once a month for at least 30 months. If you can't afford that, then don't start. It's a waste of freaking time and money. 30 months is what you need, and you want to get to 1,000 homes as quickly as possible. There's something else called relationship farming that I've been very successful at, and a lot of people I've trained have. And that's where you pick no more than 600 homes, because you have to get to every single home every 3 weeks. The math behind that, I'll hurry, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
The math behind that is this. If you go to a home once a month, it's not a trick question. How many times a year is that? 12. Only a quarter of the room knew the answer. That's sad. The rest of you going, let me add. But if you go every 3 weeks, in 1 year you go 17 times. That's 45% more times than once a month. You can't do it with a lot of house, because it's got to be you door knocking. You hit every single door every 3 weeks. You don't drop and run. That's where you go, drop the flyer, and you're knocking on the door, and the people are going to start to get used to you as they are the mailman. You're just coming less often, and that works really well because you're building a relationship. You only take the comps, the comparables, once every few times, but you're taking like a community calendar, and you're just talking to them at the door. And the key to relationship farming is what you say just before the conversation ends. Even if they're about to slam the door in your face, just before the door slams, you say, see you in 3 weeks. Every single time. And that works really well.
Give him a hand.
So.
I love it. All right. Now, he threw a lot of fancy math on you there. So, there are 3 types of people when it comes to math. Those who get it and those who do not. Now, what? Is that good? Do you like that? No, they say we use 10% of our brain, correct? Could you imagine what would happen if we use the other 60%? All right, couldn't help. All right. Okay, so now, oh, by the way, I got to do my three. Radio. None of them said radio. I killed it with radio. That was my number one source by a mile. Past clients was huge. Number two, you do a good job. They love you. They just call you back. Hey, we're ready to list 6%, right? Sure. Anyways. And then number three is Sphere. I've been going to church for 20 years in Roseville. I'm super friendly, never bring business cards, never talk about it. But people are like, hey, you're in real estate, right? Come listen. It was great. It's not why I went to church, but Little League, baseball, soccer, being involved in your community, being friendly, loving, kind, things will come to you. We all agree? So those are my three. I had to get in on that action.
Yeah, I want to say that Brent invited me once to be on his radio show. And it was on September 7th. And I was with a family function. I stepped out of the function at the front yard to be on his radio show for 45 minutes. And 3 weeks later, I listed a $900,000 house in Alameda, and I told him I owe him and his wife a dinner just
you bet you do.
Once, yeah. So.
That's awesome. You don't owe me nothing, man. I love you. Okay, so let's move on. What was your, and we're going to have to wrap up after this, but what was your favorite listing experience or story when you went on a listing appointment? Do you have a story for us of kind of a funny thing that happened, or you, I'll go first. I went to list I'm going to do it. What the heck? I'm the host. I went to list a condo for $300,000, and I listed, they go, but we have 32 others. I got 33 $300,000 condos. I just went to list one. That was really cool. When you're old like me, you'll have stories like that too.
Okay. So I was at the pet store, and Dan reminded me of this, one of my guys that runs my team. Anyway, Dan reminded me that this happened, and I'd completely forgot about it. But there was a really cute girl in the car next door, a blonde, and my wife is blonde, and I happened to look over at this cute girl for just a second, and I guess I was distracted, and I ran into her vehicle. And it was really embarrassing. So I said, I'm so sorry, I got a little distracted. I didn't tell her why. And so anyway, she said, oh my gosh, I just pulled into the pet store for a minute to grab something, and I was getting ready to go get a car wash and put a for sale sign on my truck. And I said, oh, you're going to sell it? And I looked at the truck and I go, well, how much are you asking for it? And she goes, $4,500. And I was looking for a backup vehicle for, showing land in Grass Valley. So I said, well, heck, for $4,500, I'll buy that, And she goes, no, that doesn't happen like that, And I said, no, really, I'm really interested. So she shows up at my office 30 minutes later with her very skeptical husband, and, he's going, what's the game? What kind of game are you playing here? And I said, no, really, I'm interested. I ended up recruiting the two people to come into eXp, ended up listing their property and sold it for $350,000.
The rest of us should just table our stories. Yeah. Who's going to beat that one?
How can you follow that?
I know, it's tough.
Right? But you can. Well, it's your story.
So we were talking on the way here because we did get the questions ahead of time. So we were trying to decide which story was our favorite story. And I think that I think Woodland wins. Yeah. So Mike did a little bit of bank-owned back in the bank-owned days, and we had this IndyMac listing in Woodland out at the golf course. I don't know if you guys know the Wild Wings golf course, the one that never has water. So we had this bank-owned, and he wasn't allowed to double-end the bank-owned properties, so it was really handy that I was working with him so I could represent the buyer. So we represented this buyer. He bought the house. Everything was good. Well, he hated California, so he ended up moving back to the Midwest. So we listed the house for him, and then I found a past client that I was like, hey, Dave, you should buy this house. So he bought the house, and then we got to list it again because Dave also hated Woodland. So we got to sell that house. We got paid on that house 5 times, so...
Are you freaking kidding me right now?
That's awesome.
This is not a joke. My story is about a listing that I didn't get. I can remember it like it was the other day. It was the month that I took more listings than I've ever taken in my life. It was May of 2002. I took 18 listings that month. But the thing that really stood out for me is that I went into a series of 9 listing appointments where I only got 3, and that had never happened to me. Like, right, if I went on 9 appointments, I usually got 8 or 7. And so I did my call. And this call, the lady had said, "Oh, I knew your brother Timmy. I'd lost my middle brother to cancer a couple years earlier, and he was really big in the local church that we all went to." And I'm like, "Oh," so I got there, and I was really comfortable. And we started talking about my brother Timmy, and I got a little teary-eyed, and he'd only died a year earlier, and so then she did show me around the house. I took my notes. Then I did it, but I didn't do my normal presentation. I kind of just relaxed and got comfortable. And I was like, I went back to the office, and my assistant goes, "You get it?" I go, "I'm pretty sure I am, but she's going to interview a couple other agents." Well, sure enough, I get a voicemail that same afternoon. "Rick, it was so great meeting you and reminiscing about Timmy. We've hired someone else to list our house." I'm like, "You?" So I pick up the phone immediately, because my hands are shaking. I'm like, "You're telling me about my brother and you didn't hire me? Like, I want to slap you." So I picked up the phone, I called her, I did the script that I just shared with you. I forgot about this question, Brent, because I only looked at the questions a few minutes ago. And I said, I did the thing. And she goes, I said, "So if I had the opportunity," because she had said on the voicemail, "We liked everybody, you guys were all so nice, but this lady's going to do a few things that you didn't mention, so that's why we hired her." So that's what she said on the voicemail. So when I said that, I said, "On the voicemail, you said she was going to do a few things that I didn't mention. Could you tell me what?" She goes, "Well, it was 3 things in particular." And I said, "Well, what were they?" And she said, "Well, apparently she's going to put this really huge sign in my lawn that says 'for sale.'" Now, I'm on speakerphone, and my assistant is cracking up and looking at me like I'm a freaking idiot. And I go, "Okay," and I'm like shaking now. I'm go, "What's number 2? She goes, "Well, apparently they have this little box that they hide your key in so other realtors can get in when I'm not home. Isn't that genius?" Now I'm like losing it now, and I'm like, "Okay, so what's the third one?" And she goes, "Oh, the third one. I wrote it down. It's the MSL." And I said, "Did you mean the MLS?" And she said, "Yeah, is that what it's called? Apparently, they can put my home on this MLS, and thousands of realtors will know about it." I'm like, I'm so glad that you were willing to answer my question today, and I know you're going to be in really good hands. Thank you very much. So I hung up the phone. I swear, I was KW at the time, and we were going back to Austin for Mega Camp at the time. And how many of you, Brent, Dawn, you guys remember Linda McKissick? She was teaching a class called How to Take 10 Listings a Month for the Rest of Your Lives. So I'm like, I better get my butt in that class, right? I mean, I was closing $60 million a year at the time. It wasn't like I was a slacker, but so I go sit in the class, and the first thing she says is, "Top producers state the obvious with passion." She goes, "You'll want to go to listings with your sign under your arm and the lockbox in your hand and show off about the MLS." I'm like, "You're telling me that now?"
That's hilarious. Give him a hand. Great job, everyone. Wait. I'm going to have you, I want you to just real quick. I want 60 seconds from each one of you. If you want to inspire them to get to the next level, and you just parachuted into Phoenix, and you want to get going overnight and be massively successful, what would you do? You got 60 seconds or less.
Okay. I would absolutely figure out what I wanted to do, what I was passionate about, and I would go for listings that I was passionate about. I tell you, don't list ugly. List what you're passionate about. Never discount your value on the front end, because you lose your leverage on the back end to keep a deal together or put a deal together that when it's needed. And that way you can work from a place of charity when you need to be charitable, because you make money. But I would focus on that, and never list properties that are ugly, because you'll attract ugly people. And you want to work with people that are attracted to what you're attracted to and what you're so passionate about. There you go.
That's probably the smartest thing I've heard in a long time. And it's so true, right? So I would, let's assume we don't have a lot of money, and I would find a nice neighborhood. where the home's a subdivision, where the home's similar, where it's easy to comp out, and I would get on my feet and would door knock. Albert Jarvis is here, actually. We did door knocking together when I first got in the business. Remember that? So, and that doesn't cost you anything, right? And that builds that relationship. There you go. That's the word. So that's it for me.
Oh. So I'm hoping that you have a little bit of money. So I would invest in like a Vulcan 7 or Mojo or those are dialers. Vulcan gets really, really good phone numbers for sale by owners and expireds, and that's really the fastest way to get your listing inventory up is to talk to those people. They've raised their hand, they want to sell. The expireds have already said that they'll pay a realtor. Like call them. They want to work with you. They deserve to work with people that actually care about them versus their listing agent that stopped calling them. So that's what I would do.
You could just stand in a mall as pretty as you are, and they would list with you. So, since he put the proviso on the end that you were parachuting into an area that you're not familiar with, I would definitely first, number one, I would make the rule that I was taking an entire day off every week, which I did not do in the beginning of my career. I was working 7 days a week. And I would door knock 5 days a week. I would pick a price range that was moving fast. And I would door knock every single day of the week and hold at least 2 open houses a week, one being on a weekday and one being on a weekend day. If you do that, I'm telling you, I don't care where you're at, you will do well. So that's mine.
Give him a hand, everybody. Thanks a lot. Great job. Thank you. Wonderful job.